Hi dear friends and my dear students, we are going to resume from the same lesson, the world after the World War II. We are on the page number 54, the fourth point that we are going to deal with, the Korean War. The war which took place as a form of revolution in China also had a war in Korea. So what was the situation of Korea over there? The Korean War made the Cold War even more hot, and Korea gained nothing out of this war. But what was the real thing that happened? Korea War was partitioned as a two, North and South. The northern part of Korea was ruled by Kim II, and the southern part, Nyingma Rhee. Korea was partitioned in the year 1945. The Korean War sums up the whole of Cold War. By this, the world also is divided into three divisions. The first one, capitalists. Who are coming under the capitalists is the First World War. The people, those who are coming under the capitalists, are the First World. The communist states are grouped under the Second World. The state out of these two, both the capitalist and the communist, are called as the Third World. So the world is divided into three. One is capitalist, communist, and other than these two groups are called as the Third World. The non-alignment movement came about. It is also like a form of disarmament, non-alignment, not taking in the power or not joining any one of these two blocks or not joining any one of these two superpowers, US and USSR. It emerged in the wake Decolonization, which was followed after the World War II. What is this decolonization? The countries which have power over, rule over the other country has to withdraw itself from the colony. That is what called as decolonization. So there was a call for abstaining, keeping away from allying with, joining with any of these two superpowers. So there was a call. There is also another group of countries which is calling them to join them against, the sense not to fight, but not to join the two superpowers that are US and USSR, is called as non-alignment movement. Also pledged to fight all forms of colonization and imperialism. So the ideas of non-alignment is this. The first form is not to join these two superpowers and encourage the fight. And the second concept is to eradicate colonization and imperialism from this world. The basic principles, very, very important concept when you talk about non-alignment, because even today is very, very important. The principles of non-alignment are three. The first one is peaceful coexistence. How is that possible? Is the commitment to peace and security. The first concept is peaceful coexisting with all the other countries in the peaceful manner, having peace and security among them. The second one is no military alliance with any superpowers. Now, can you remember any of the military alliances which are made? I hope you are recalling those types of, the four types of military alliances: NATO, SEATO, okay, the Warsaw Pact, which are made to unite the military powers. So that's what here we are talking about, the military alliance. So not to have these type of military alliances is called as a non-alignment. And there is no permission for any superpower to build its military based in its territories. What does this concept means? We don't allow any of the superpowers to have their military settlements in our country or any other country. That's what here they are giving. No permission for any superpower to build their military-based territories. So these are the basic concepts of non-alignment which emerged. So these are very, very important concepts. The next one we are going to talk about Cuban revolution. In Cuba also there emerged war, like we talked about the Korea, we talked about China. Okay, we also going to talk about the Cuban revolution. What happened in Cuba? They were governed and ruled by a group of people, that is a military personnel, land gentry, and occasionally by the local capitalists. And these made those people dependent on the US aid. What is this aid means? Help. So when these groups of people were ruling Cuba, they were always getting the support, they were in need of support, but depended upon US aid. So US also took advantage over this, and they had a lot of installment in Cuba. And what happened? When Fidel Castro, an important leader, came to power, when he took the power in Cuba, US refused to process Russian oil. The first thing that they have done is they refused to process the Russian oil. What did Fidel Castro do? He nationalized. The second thing, US ended the arrangements of bringing the bulk of Cuba's sugar. Castro nationalized. So Castro ended the US monopolies in not only all these concepts, but also electricity, telephone. So there was a lot of misunderstanding between Cuba government, which was under Fidel Castro, and the power and the implementation of US in Cuba. At the same time, there was a crisis in the Cuban missile. It's called as a Cuban Missile Crisis. What is this actually is? USSR secretly implemented a missile, installed a nuclear missile in Cuba. When US got these ideas, when US came to know, at once started to attack Cuba. And USSR and the nuclear power plant was removed. And they started to have an agreement between that they will not install any more these types of nuclear missiles in Cuba. They also agreed to remove the US nuclear missiles in Turkey. So what a good thing. When the nuclear missile which was installed in Cuba by USSR was removed, the US also had nuclear missiles in Turkey. So in the agreement which was made between US and Cuba, the US also gave up the nuclear missiles in. So these are the good things which has taken place after these situations. And now we are going to move to the other part of the world, the Arab nations. Okay, the first one we talked about the China. The second one we talked about the powers of the Atlantic nations. Next one we talked about the German. Now we are going to talk about the Arabs. Among them there was a lot of clash. That is the Arab-Israeli war. What happened? After the World War, the Treaty of Versailles, which brought peace for some time in the world after the First World War, they brought about some of the countries under some of the powers. Under France, Syria and Lebanon. Under Britain, Iraq, Palestine and Jordan are given. At this juncture, Britain promised the Zionists, the group of people of Jewish, a Zionist leader. Britain promised them that they will give up a separate nation. When you talk about India, just we can recall the situation when India was getting independence freedom, the Muslims asked for a separate nation for them. In the same way, the Jewish also asked for a separate nation for themselves, Zionists. And Britain also agreed for it. Whereas all the other Arabs were not happy to separate. So Britain promised to Zionist leader that it would allocate one of the Arab lands. They are giving us the Palestine, because under Britain, Iraq, Palestine and Jordan are given. So Britain is allocating the Palestine to Jewish, Palestine into Jewish and Arab states. These arose lots of conflicts between them. And Britain also has put forth this problem, this situation in UN, United Nations. And they also tried to partition Palestine into Jewish and other states. In Israel, the war is remembered, the war between these Israelis and the Arabs, the war is remembered. On the part of Israel, it is remembered as the war of independence for the freedom, whereas the Arab world, the other group, is treating it as a Nakba. What is this? Catastrophe. As a large number of Arabs became refugees in this Arab-Israeli war. So the great clash between Arabs and Israelis, okay, the Jewish people, the Zionists. So that was the situation in Arab-Israeli war. And it led to the lot of crisis around, in and around, okay, the Arab nations. The first one we are going to talk about is the Zeus Canal Crisis in 1956. We know as the Zeus Canal, which is from the bottom we have a Red Sea, on the northern part is above the Saudi Arabia. So the Zeus Canal Crisis took place. What was the Suez Canal Crisis? In 1956, Nasser nationalized the Suez Canal. He was the president. He nationalized. The nationalized means any country can have a trade through the Suez Canal. It weakened the British power. It weakened the British interest over there. The clash emerged between Egypt and Israel, and the intervention of Britain and France, and heavy political pressure from United States and the USSR led to its own withdrawal. So Egypt on the west, Israel on in the east have a lot of clash. Here Britain and France started to intervene in this problem, and later on the superpowers, US and USSR also started to intervene and support each other. Because of that, the problem was withdrawn. Israel fulfilled, in this clash, Israel fulfilled some of its own objectives, aims, some of its own advantages. What are those? The first one, attaining freedom of navigation through the Straits of Tiran. So one of the advantage, or one of the things that attained, was freedom of navigating through the Straits of Tiran. And it continued with the Arab-Israeli war again in 1967. The first war we talked about was in the year earlier, and now we are going to talk about in the year 1967 once again. In the formation of Palestine Liberation Organization, PLO, Israel came to be attacked frequently by the Palestinian guerrilla groups. We know guerrilla means they hide themselves and try to attack. So these types of Palestinian groups started to attack based in Syria, Lebanon and Jordan. So Palestinians started to attack Syria, Lebanon and Jordan. And here we should know that Syria and Lebanon are under France, and the group of the Jordan is under the Britain. And when they had the frequent attack in November 1966, an Israeli strike was there. The second one, Israel's air battle with Syria in the April 1967. These are the two major attacks which took in the attack of Arab-Israel war in 1967. It brought about a lot of offensive to Israelis. What are things that has taken place? Following the mobilization of Arabs, movement of Arabs, states by Nasser, on June 5th, Israel staged a sudden preemptive air attack that destroyed more than 90% of the Egypt's air force on the tarmac. So in the great attack, 90% of the Egypt's air force was in tarmac, great danger, destruction. A similar air assault incapacitated in the Syrian Air Force. Within 3 days, the Israelis had achieved a great victory on the ground, capturing Gaza Strip and all of the Sinai Peninsula up to the east bank of the Suez Canal until the east. So they thought to attack and conquer. So it is Israel's offensive. Already we come to know the UN had taken these issues from Britain. Now UN starts to intervene in this problem. UN Security Council, which is one of the organs of this UN Security Council, called for the ceasefire. In this, Egypt and Jordan and Israel respond to UN. UN's call in a favorable manner. Syria continued to shell villages in northern Israel, Syria did not follow or pay any heed to the UN Security Council. The intervention of UN has brought good for some, and some of them did not accept or follow it. Arab-Israeli war continued again in the year 1973. Egypt and Syria, under the president of Anwar Sadat and Hafzal al-Assad respectively, concluded a secret agreement in January 1973. They made an agreement to bring their armies under one command. So Egypt and Syria, they made an agreement, their army are brought under one command as one group. Egypt and Syria offered Israel's a peace deal. Egypt and Syria called Israel for peace, to come together and make an agreement. But Israel peace deal rejected. They rejected it. Israel rejected it. Egypt and Syria launched a surprise attack because their army is already united. They had a sudden attack on a particular religious holiday, that is on Yom Kippur. It is a festival, a festival of religious holiday. On the particular day, Syria and Egypt had an attack on Israel. Though Israel suffered heavy casualties, heavy losses, it finally pushed back the Arab forces, which means Israel's somewhat, they got victory over these Arabs. So these are the situation, these are the events took place in the among the Arab nations. Now we are going to change the topic from here, Arab nations, to the Vietnam. So here you have to listen to a particular paragraph which is very, very important. The second of the Indonesia wars and was officially fought between North Vietnam, that is Viet Minh, and the Southern Vietnam, that is warII. North Vietnam was supported by the Soviet Union, China, and the other communist allies. So which means the Northern Vietnam, so the Vietnam is divided into two parts. So Northern Vietnam and Southern Vietnam. Northern Vietnam is supported by the communists. Who are the communists? Soviet Union, China, and the allies of them are supporting the Northern Vietnam. And the Southern Vietnam was supported by the United States, South Korea, Philippines, Australia, Thailand, and other anti-communist allies. So here we will know the communist as well as talk about the other group is called as anti-communists are going to have a power over this Vietnam. So come to the conclusion of Vietnam War. The Vietnam is divided into two, North and South. The northern part was completely controlled by communist power. The southern part is completely ruled by or supported by anti-communists. So you should come to know how the superpowers have shown their power even in the country Vietnam, the place Vietnam. The war considered a Cold War era proxy war by some. It lasted nearly 19 years. So what are the names given for this Vietnam War is Cold War or proxy war. Cold War era or proxy war era are the names given to this Vietnam War. With a population of 60 million, North Vietnam became a communist state under the leadership of Ho Chi Minh as the president. South Vietnam approximately of the same size, more or less same, 16 million or nearly about 60 million of people. Okay, the same size population was ruled by Nguyen Dinh Diem, or two great leaders were ruling both the north and the southern part of Vietnam. And here we will come to know the superpowers, how they showed their power over. The next topic we are going to deal with that European Union, very, very important concept, very, very important event in the world. What happened in how the European Union developed? Starting with the first topic, European Council. How did this European Council start? What are the major objectives of this? What are the achievements of this European Union? How were they able to unite some of the European countries as a one? The achievements, these are things we are going to talk about here. The first one, Council of Europe, objectives. First one, to prevent European wars further, because France and Germany, the war between France and Germany was very heavy. So they want to prevent the European countries from the war. The second one is to unite to resist the threat from Soviet Russia. To be united and resist that from Soviet Russia. So this is the second concept. The third one is the third force after US and USSR. Already we talked about US as the first power, USSR as the second power, and the third, to come up with the third power, European Union is formed. And to develop among themselves economically and in the military resource to come to the good strength, good power, okay, was formed. So these are the major objectives of European Council, the Council of Europe. So first one, to prevent Europe from the further war. The second one, to safeguard, to secure from the threat of the communists, the Soviet Russia. The third one, to form another superpower from US and USSR. And the last one, to support themselves, to grow among themselves economically and with the military resource. In May 1949, 10 countries met in London and signed to form Council of Europe. So Council of Europe came to be in the year 1949. So these are the objectives which we have seen already. And before forming the European councils, there was an idea about unity. How it came to be? We are going to talk about the European coal and steel community. Already there were some of the countries who were united together for various other purposes. One of them was a coal and steel committee. In this, they supported with the resources supplying from one country to another country. Means when you talk about the European state, one state to another state. Here they were joined, united. They were supporting each other. This idea was developed into why can't they bring this unity among all the countries in Europe. That's what came to be in 1949 as the Council of Europe. The European Coal and Steel Community, ECSC, as a European, a real power to exercise, established this ECSC. The members of this European Coal and Steel Community are 6 countries: France, West Germany, Italy, Belgium, Holland and Luxembourg. So these are the countries first joined as this community and they developed into European Council. The European Economic Community, another one which developed was European Economic Community, EEC. It eliminated barriers, boundaries, removed the boundaries. In what are the main? Goods, services, capital and labor. The movement, mobilization of these 4 things: goods, things, services, activities, capital, money and the labor, people moving, the workers moving from one place to another place. It eliminated the boundaries. Another one is the policies are brought about. A common agriculture policy for all the countries, one. A common external trade policy for all the countries. And there was a common European market. All the countries can come and have a marketing over there. Was a remarkable success of this European Economic Community. And what was the result? What was the success? What was the achievement of this European Council is a single European Act. What is a single European Act? It came into force July 1st, 1987. According to it, each member was given a multiple votes depending on country's population. So they brought about each of them, all the country members based on the population, they were given votes to elect the members of the European Council. And it brought about the European Union. That's the major topic we are going to talk about, European Union. So these are things which supported in the development, the unity of this European Union. The Netherlands Treaty signed on February 7, 1992 created this European Union. Today the European Union has 28 member states. So it started with few countries, already we talked about with the 10 members, now it has developed into 28 member states in this European Union. And it has brought about a common currency. What is common currency? It is euro. Whole of European country without any boundary, without any limitation, they use only one currency, that is euro. It replaced the currency was brought earlier. So now the whole of European is united. Now they come as a power, another superpower, the third power which came to be. More or less, it's not equal to US or USSR, but it was united in the economical manner, it is united in the military power, it is also united in the peace and security. So here we end the topic of the European Union. So to summarize the European Union, we talk about it started with some of the movement community, European Coal and Steel Community, European Economic Community, and these community joined together started the European Council. And the European Council brought about the achievements of Single European Act. And the European Council and the Single European Act developed into single currency, Euro, which was brought into existence in 2002. The last topic which we are going to deal with is the Berlin Wall. Berlin, which is the center of Germany, was divided into two. Get back, recall, after the World War II, the surrender of Germany into the powers made them separate Germany into two parts. One is on the eastern part, one is on the eastern part. Already in the first part, I have told you. The eastern part, the northeastern part was given to USSR, southern eastern part was given to US, in the western part, northern part was given to Britain, the southern part was given to France. So we can see in the textbook, the maps they are given. So Berlin also was divided into two, East Berlin and West Berlin. So here we can see East and West Berlin. Now what is the situation? The East Berlin, which was under USSR, East Berlin, which was under USSR, had a communist rule. The West Berlin, which was under Britain, France and US, had the capitalists and their own mentality, ideas. So they should not have, so non-communist party. Now, the Berlin was divided into two. You will not believe, not to mingle the ideas of the people, they constructed a big wall between them. So separating the East Berlin and West Berlin, they constructed a huge wall. So East Germany began to construct a wall in 1961. They constructed a wall in one capital, which virtually cut off West Berlin from the East Berlin and surrounding East German areas. The Berlin Wall was more than just a physical barrier. As I told you, it is not just a construction of wall. It is more than that. It was a symbolic boundary between communism and capitalism. The communism of Russia, USSR, capitalism of US. The mass of people, a great number of people assembled on 9th November 1989 on both the sides of this great wall of Berlin and began to demolish it. Germany was officially reunited again in 1989, and on 3rd October 1990, officially Germany was united by the unity of Berlin, destroying the Berlin Wall. Disintegration of Soviet Union. So here we are going to talk about the fall of Berlin Wall has brought about lot of development. The first concept is disintegration of Soviet Union. For this we have to go a little more history of the Soviet Union, who were the rulers who were ruling it. So some of the leaders they are given, okay. The last one was Goebbels. So to talk about this great leader, very important person, we need to remember some of the history in this particular concept. Goebbels and Elstein. So here we can see Goebbels and Elstein. These are the two great leaders came to be. Here when we talk about the Soviet Union, the disintegration developed in the year 1970s and early 1990s. Soviet Union continued to remain a strong and dominant position in the international policies, the politics. However, its economy was suffering. It was not as capable, it was not as strong, it was not as powerful as US, the communists. So here, they were unable to match the first wall, the capitalists. Gorbachev spoke about the need for openness and reformation. So USSR faced ups and downs in 1980s under Gorbachev. So he was a great leader. He wants to bring about it. In the year 1988, they saw the first mass protest, a great gathering. It's a type of a revolution. First in America and then in Baltic state. There was a lot of disaster among them. That was the first one, Chernobyl disaster, a major accident in a nuclear plant in Ukraine in 1986 was another blow. So these are the disasters also affected the economy of this a particular nation, a Soviet Union. The disaster on one side, on the other side, the East European communist states were also in the deep economic and social crisis. As we have seen already, the European economic states were also in deep economic and social crisis. Gorbachev's decision to loosen it created an independent democratic movement. What is this? He gave some freedom for the European countries. As we have seen already, the demonstrations that swept East Germany led to the demolition of the Berlin Wall. The demolition of Berlin Wall, which we have seen already, the division within the ruling group was growing ever wider and its control over the Soviets becoming more difficult. Now Gorbachev made a last attempt to take a hard line against the disruptionist, only to be challenged by a second great miners' strike in 1991. A huge in Moscow. In response to constructive forces in his government attempted to take a hard line without Gorbachev. Gorbachev, under house arrest, and the power fell into the hands of Boris Yeltsin, a reformer, another backed by the West. So he was from Yeltsin was from the West and Gorbachev on the North. So he took the power over. As a result, many states and countries became independent. On 25th December, Gorbachev announced his resignation, and at midnight on 31st December 1991, it was formally dissolved. The USSR was no more. Thank you.